So, it's Sunday again, and I'm very tired. Today was the first day that I was just flat out not in the mood to write. I was just in the mood to kind of putter and do different things, like, I don't know, just listen to music and maybe organize my Goodreads stuff and think around on Etsy and maybe, I don't know what I was in the mood to do. Draw? I don't know. But I needed to write, and I needed to write a lot, because for some reason, when I came up with my every 5,000 word goal dates for NaNoWriMo, I somehow put word between today and tomorrow I was going to do 5,000 words, and then I don't have to hit another 5,000 words for like 4 or 5 days. And I'm like, why did you do that, Careena? I mean, yeah, last Sunday you wrote a lot of words, but, maybe you would have been getting a little tired by this Sunday, But I got quite a bit of words done, and I did another live writing sprint. I didn't do it as long because I'd already been writing for a while, but I got some words written, so that's good. But it's kind of a bummer because I got to a place that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, and there's a part of me that's like, well, am I going to need to rewrite this whole thing? Because as much as I've been looking forward to it, I hadn't really planned out exactly how I wanted to go, which is unusual for me. And so I feel like it just doesn't play right. And part of that is because I was going to have my main character's arc be coming to a new place. And it kind of was, but the problem is that with the other things happening in the story, my character is also taking steps back. And I'm realizing that from the reader's perspective, it's not going to look like he's changing at all. It's probably going to look like he's actually getting worse, not better. And so I'm not completely sure what to do there. So I guess we'll just kind of keep going and see how it plays out. But I did manage to actually exceed my suggested daily word count for the NaNoWriMo website, so that's good. Okay, so it's Monday, which is usually the day that I'm freshest, so I'm feeling a lot better today, more energy, so gonna work on doing some writing before I go eat breakfast. So I need a little over 2,000 more words in order to hit the goal that I had set for my NaNoWriMo calendar for hitting 20,000 words, but if I don't hit it today, that's okay. I want to at least get close, because I'm not scheduled on my little calendar to hit the next 5,000 words for like several days, so that gives me some extra leeway if I don't quite hit it today. I'm also getting my excitement back for this part of the story that I've been excited about. In fact, I'm going to go reread what I typed just to see if it kind of gives me the right vibe. I might tweak it just a little bit. Might not, just because editing as you go could really be avoided during NaNoWriMo, but if I want to just rewrite the very end of it, I might while I'm here. Okay, so I've been writing for about an hour. I need to go eat breakfast. It's a little later than I planned out, but that's okay because I finally kind of got on a roll. I only have about 700 more words, but I might be able to pull it off today, but at the very least, I got a lot of words done, so that's good. I'm very grateful for that. I did kind of sort of tweak those earlier bits just a bit, but I mostly was just rereading them so I could get a feel for what was going on. But what I did write, I did end up liking. I felt like it turned out. It's really hard whenever you kind of first start to go into a character's thoughts, like one of your side characters that you haven't really shown their thoughts much before. That's really tricky. So I was kind of, trying to start to get a feel for that, but everything else went really smoothly, so that's good. So close. I think I'm gonna make it. Ah, I did it. Praise the Lord. Okay. So I don't really particularly feel like doing a vlog update for some reason, but I'm gonna do one anyway. So the last couple days I have really been struggling with being really tired and kind of just being tired, and that plays into my writing. Today I finally had a day off, and so I have done some writing, but I also knew that I really needed a day to just veg out. And so I've watched YouTube some today. I have worked on writing. I painted my nails, which is the first time in like forever that I've done that. But yeah, so I have been in the middle area of my story. I am currently post-midpoint pursuit for my main character. And I also need to update you all on a central side character who, gee, I don't even know how much I've shared of which characters with you all, and there's no way to like keep them straight for you guys without like sharing their names and a bunch of stuff about them that I kind of want to keep secret right now. But he is probably the main side character. In fact, there probably were times where I felt like he was competing with the main character for centrality, if that's even a word, in the story, for, you know, being the main character in the story. Currently, I actually have it set up where you briefly meet him before you meet my main character. So they're almost like dual main characters, but not quite. So he, in my outline, did not have a midpoint and kind of the middle area of his story. I had kind of my pre-midpoint stuff, and then I had the last few beats, you know, your aha moment and your victory. But I didn't know where his dark moment and all that was going to be, because I still didn't completely understand how his past dictated what he did in the story. So I was writing kind of this middle part of the story, and some things happened which I knew were going to happen. But as I was writing them, I realized that they were causing more of his backstory to surface than I had planned on. I'm doing something in the story where I am specifically really trying to keep this main side character's backstory an absolute, at least the plain backstory. You know, I'm hinting at the backstory, but not doing any flashbacks or doing anything like that. Not any obvious hinting until the very end, until the climax where there is sort of a flashback. It's not written as a flashback, but the reason that's tricky is because how do you show his internal conflict without giving away his backstory? So that's the tricky part. The other thing is that I'm realizing that currently how I have set up kind of the way he acts upon his false belief has been kind of lessening as we approached the midpoint, which was good. He was making progress, but I realized that kind of part of his thing is he doesn't want to remember his backstory. So I have, you know, where he's, you know, on the outside he appears very hard and very cold, and then the farther I get in the story, the more I get into his thoughts. And you see him kind of at this point in the story trying not to remember the past. And the difficult thing about that is that in that sense, more of his, you know, things that he doesn't like about his backstory and kind of related to his fear are surfacing. But the problem is that on the outside, you would expect him to grow harder. And I just didn't quite do that, partly because he does kind of end up being by himself afterwards, so I don't need to show that, like, you know, him being cold to people. So, yeah, characters are tricky because just like people, we have a lot of factors, you know, that affect the way we act, that could or could not be directly related to something kind of embedded in us. Could just be the mood we're having that day, or, you know, the nature of the situation. Normally we act one way or another, but there are other factors that affect the way we behave, and so it's just very difficult to know, like, why does it seem like he's changing in a way that isn't necessarily dictated by what's happening in the story? And so that's where sometimes that can be a signal that your character is starting to what we call write themselves, which is basically where they are becoming such a developed character that something about them is coming naturally, even if you hadn't planned on it. And that's actually, while it can be very frustrating, a very good thing, because it means you've probably hit some sort of level with your character where even if you don't fully understand them, you're kind of in tune with how they behave and something about them. I can't decide yet if it's that or if it's just that I need to work on some consistency, but yeah, maybe you can relate to that, because creating characters, especially characters that really aren't like you, because this character is like nothing like me, which is funny because then the main character is similar to me in a lot of ways, which is funny because they kind of end up making a natural
comedy duo, even though the story's not really funny. I as a writer find it amusing to put a character that's, very outgoing and talkative like me and curious with a character who's very cold-shouldered and doesn't like a lot of talking. I find that very humorous. Of course, this is the person whose favorite character in Finding Dory was Hank, and putting Hank with Dory, of course, was very hilarious, but yeah, there's that. So, there's your update.
Something else I can't decide. I can't decide how villain my villain is. Like, he's not a true villain. Like, he's actually more like an anti-hero or an anti-hero. No, I'm sorry. He's more like an anti-villain. An anti-villain is actually the opposite of what it sounds like. It is an antagonist character that has good motives and is going about their mission the wrong way. And what's funny is that he's not even going about his mission the wrong way entirely. And I have to be careful, because what I could end up doing is creating a morally gray character that has good motives but does things like lying, which is obviously not good. That's not in the Bible. That's against what the Bible says. And my main character, who's a Christian, knows that. But she doesn't know yet that he's lying, and kind of the true seeing what he's like is going to come out. But the thing is, at the end of the story, you can't decide, is he going to change and end up changing that, and then he is a very good person. And of course, maybe he'll become a Christian. I'm not completely sure, because he seems like a guy that you genuinely could trust if these certain character flaws changed about him, which is very, very difficult, because normally when you go to write an antagonist, they're just the antagonist. But this guy is almost not even bad enough to be an anti-villain, but he is an anti-villain because he's going about good motives the wrong way. And so, yeah, more character stuff. I'm deep in the depths of figuring out characters as they ebb and flow in different directions throughout the middle of the story.
Also, I need to have a laugh at how trashy my desk is. I mean, it's so bad, guys. I have worked pretty hard to, keep this decent throughout NaNoWriMo. I mean, I haven't worked that hard, but I've at least tried. And today, that kind of went out the window. But I should be able to get it tidied up soon, hopefully.
So I was short 10 words for my words needed today goal. So I sat down and wrote what pretty much just needed to be a sentence. And I ended up writing over 1,000 words, which is blows my mind, because I wasn't even writing for that long. And so that actually puts me ahead. In fact, hold on, let me full screen it. Let me come up here to my stats. I'm already here in my stats. Duh, Careena. And that actually helps me, because now I've continued to be a little bit ahead. I've been ahead kind of the whole time, but that just helped me. I'm about 4,000, almost 5,000 words ahead, which is awesome. My goal was to be on track to where hopefully I would end a little bit sooner. I think I've said that before, just in case something happened and I got behind. That way, being ahead helps in case you get behind. So this is my daily word count, and so far I'm averaging about 2,000 words a day, which is incredible. And I'm almost now to 25,000 words. Which is really great, because I hadn't scheduled to need to hit 25,000 words until Saturday, and it's only Thursday evening. So this is just a really big blessing. I'm really grateful that God kind of helped me get these words going, and I'm kind of at a part that completely is not playing out how I expected, and it's starting to cause some unsettlement inside the main character, which is probably good for what's getting ready to come. And in a way, it's kind of her growing, because she's noticing things, versus she's been pretty naive throughout a lot of the book and not picking up on cues, and she's kind of learning now to learn who she should trust, who she shouldn't, but she's still making some mistakes, which is good. Probably not going to share too much at the moment on that, but this character, my main character, as far as how I'm doing her arc, it's very different from how I've done my main character arcs in the past. So I need to get ready for bed now. I need to jump in the shower and stuff, but maybe I'll go more into that later if I remember. But yeah, staying ahead, so I'm really grateful for that. Dun da da! I have exceeded 25,000! I'm more than halfway! Cue happy dance! Yesterday, I finally bought my kind of reward items for hitting 10,000 words and 20,000 words. Of course, now that I've passed 25,000 words, which I still have to go get the money for that. But anyway, for 10,000 words, I got some earmuffs. They're so cute. I have a leopard coat, so these are going to be perfect. And then on clearance, there was a CD. So for 20,000 words, I got a CD, which... What's funny is I checked like my list where I had said, what I was going to get for what word counts, and I realized this was supposed to be for 40,000 words, but I was like, oh well, I'll just swap the 40,000 word and 20,000 word reward because I've already bought it and it's on clearance, so might as well not risk it not being there, and who wants to take it back when you're just going to buy it again anyway? That would be kind of unsmart. So maybe I should tell you a little bit more about that character's arc. So, normally in my stories, I do what is basically a flat character arc for my main character, which is where my main character does not have as obvious of an arc themselves. The main change in the story is the main character kind of causing that change around them and the other characters in the story. In my main novel that I wrote, that's kind of still my main project, that you've probably heard me briefly aside mention other times on this channel, that was what happened. She was a very strong Christian, and she had little, struggles and things throughout the book, but the main change was happening in the side characters. So that's really great, especially for communicating, gospel message and stuff like that. But sometimes you want to have your main character make a little bit more of a change. And the reason that I'm finding it tricky is because I try as much as possible to have my main character be setting a good example for my readers. I've talked about that before. I think I talked about it. I don't know that I worded it that way, but I talked a lot about the concept of how to make a story uplifting in actually one of my first videos about, Christian writing tips. And basically one thing that I always kind of, a rule for lack of a better word, that I have for myself is that the main character is making right choices. And don't get me wrong, my main character is making some right choices throughout the book, but sometimes I want to experiment with characters also making mistakes. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not like killing people or stuff like that in my books. Not those kinds of mistakes. Things like not trusting God or trying to take control or things like that, like things we all deal with. And how can I portray a character arc? Because in a normal sense, a character arc, normally you start off with your character going after their goal the wrong way. And so it's very hard for me to figure out how to clearly communicate to the reader that that's the wrong way without getting to the end of the book and like, what was the point? I made a mistake, now there's a problem, but that's kind of the point of a dark moment. You realize how your false belief and your fear and how you've been acting on that fear has gotten you to this place where you are. And then, the victory, you start doing it the right way. You start trusting God more, you start making better choices. And she is, like I said, making good choices throughout the book in my NaNoWriMo project. Sorry, I changed. Now we're talking about my NaNoWriMo project. Like, she's, learning to pray more throughout the book. And she's already doing that, but she's realizing that it's not enough to just pray more. She also needs to be open to listen to what God wants to tell her and be willing to do what God wants her to do, even if it's not what she wants. And so, now that I say that out loud, which... one of the wonderful things about vlogging is you kind of get a chance to explain things to you guys, so it kind of helps you step back and see your story another way. So it's kind of great. It's beneficial to me even that way. Hopefully it's beneficial to you guys and it's beneficial to me. But anyway, so as I say that out loud, it makes me realize that she is changing throughout the book, but I just need to make sure that I'm being clear as to
making sure that by the end of the story I've made a point and my audience sees that trying to do everything yourself is not the better way. The better way is trusting God and putting it in his hands. But when you're first writing it, it's really hard to get a feel for how this is going to read to the reader. So that's that. I have done non-flat character arcs in the past, but generally it was just different. It wasn't the same. I feel like this is new. Could just be that, it's a new project, so everything, there's something new about it, and I haven't quite done anything like this before, so, it just doesn't feel quite right. But yeah, kind of trying a new way of creating a character arc in a Christian story, and obviously, wanting to make it uplifting while also making it relatable, because there are times where all of us don't trust God like we should. So yeah, there's that. Characters are a mess, but I love them anyway. Okay, so before we wrap up, a quick look at my habits for this week. You can see it's the second row here, so I've written every day. Again, that's good. YouTube was about the same. And then exercise, I did a better job of. Stretching, I did a much better job of. Crafting was the same, but that doesn't really matter. Next week, if I focus on working on any of them, probably should be the grading. But grading's no fun. Oh well. Got to keep up with other responsibilities too. So, yeah, doing pretty good so far, but I need to work on being more consistent with the grading. So that about wraps up this video. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me rant about my writerly book problems. And be sure to go follow me on Instagram, because that's where I have been doing my live writing sprints so far every Sunday of NaNoWriMo. So be sure you go check that out. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a blessed week, and get out there and write the story God created you to write. Thank you guys for all your love and support, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.